Hi, it's Hazel, and welcome to my channel, Hazel Naka Design, and Happy New Year. I am taping this, obviously, ahead of the actual January 1st, 2025, and even though I will have the Lori washi collab video today, I didn't want such an important day to come and go without touching base with you. Now, we know the reason some of you keep coming back to my channel and appreciating what I'm doing is because I talk about a lot of things other than the job at hand. And that's probably also a reason why some of you don't come to the channel. But I'm at that point in my life where I need to be authentic and I need to do what feels right to me rather than chasing, those elusive algorithms and trying to contort myself into something that I'm not in the faint hope of achieving success that way. So, because I talk a lot about life and beliefs and values and so on all the time, I didn't feel like I needed to sort of write a New Year's message or anything like that. But in my quest to clean and look at everything through, a new set of eyes, a fresh set of eyes, I came across a document that I put together after reading kind of a seminal book on creativity. I did this years ago, and thank goodness I did, because otherwise the message of the book would have escaped me into the ether, never to be thought of again. But because I had summarized in bullet form what his key points were, I want to share that with you today. Now, the book is The War of Art, and it was written by Stephen Pressfield. And it is considered, as I said, really an important piece of work in terms of, the whole business of creativity and the creation of art. So, I guess that first line, or the first line that I put down there, is open to discussion in itself. Am I a professional? Are you a professional? Is that even our goal or our aim? And obviously, each of us has to answer that question on our own. However, if that is the direction we're heading, and professional could be defined, I guess, by, am I earning my living through this? Am I doing this activity regularly enough to be considered a professional? I think, again, it's up to each of us to define that ourselves. Are we professionals? Are we just seeking to calm jangled nerves and find an oasis of tranquility daily? Are we dabblers? Is this just one of the many things that we have tried throughout our lives? So again, food for thought. However, if we are striving for professionalism, again, however we define that, then there are certain things that the professional does. The professional shows up every day. So the professional, like there was a point in my life when I thought I was going to write the great Canadian novel. And I've done a fair bit of writing over the course of my lifetime. The longest term and the most regular is my weekly newspaper column. And of course, my ability to write has also been a huge asset no matter what line of work I was doing. And I think it also gives me the ability to talk to you with some degree of confidence or ease. Some people that old line about, say, public speaking being worse than death. So the professional shows up every day. So back to the writing analogy. Had I devoted as much effort to writing every day as the endeavor demands or requires or is part of succeeding, my YouTube channel may be something totally different, and I might have a row of my own books on a shelf. But I guess I wasn't motivated enough to show up every day. Whereas with this art creation, with bookmaking, with turning something into turning something into nothing. That was me pounding the table. Turning nothing into something. I definitely am showing up every day, and if I'm not, I'm either doing some legwork, some prep work, some thinking, some reading, and feeling a little gnawing hole if I'm not actively creating. So if this were in fact a checklist, I'd give myself a check mark. The professional also shows up no matter what. So you don't wait, for the planets to align, for the kids to have grown up, for you to have lost those 10 pounds, for the house to be quiet, for the house to be noisy, for your lucky green socks to be, out of the wash. In other words, there aren't any feeble excuses for not showing up. So we show up despite the stuff that happens in our lives, despite the obstacles, the hurdles, the interruptions, the things that come at us out of left field. So I would say I show up no matter what. The professional stays on the job all day. Well, if anything, I'm doing probably that to excess. Unless I'm away from the house for the day, with appointments somewhere or other, or the odd day of playing hooky, I show up in my office slash sanctuary slash studio, first thing in the morning. And first thing in the morning, in my case, could be any time from 7, if I got up with the birds, or, 9 or 10, depending if I stayed up far too late. And if I stayed up too late, I was doing something. I was stitching or fuzzy cutting or who knows what, pulling thread, deconstructing something. So I am trying to get into the habit of leaving my room, leaving my work, leaving my play at a more reasonable hour at night. I don't think that necessarily being here, actively working 10 hours a day is necessarily good for a person. It's a hell of a lot of sitting, for one thing. Plus, we do, as Julia Cameron says, have to refresh and renew ourselves. And goodness knows there are many other projects that I could be doing in different parts of the house that would still be advancing this, and I don't want to call it a career, but this endeavor. The point of this is I'm not showing up for 5-minute chunks. And please, please, please do not take it as criticism if you find that what I'm saying or that particular bullet point, if you can't check that one off in your own mind, because I fully understand that people who are at different stages in their life, and I think of someone like Sierra, Cooley Craft Corner, who has a number of children still at home and who is, believe it or not, taking courses, university courses. I said to her, when did you, how are you swinging this? You had time between midnight and 3 a.m.? So people like that are in a different category. I think anything they do is a damn miracle of time management and perseverance. But let's face it, a lot of us dither away a lot of each day with things that don't really probably help us advance our goals or in any way add to our quality of life. And we each, we all have our own vices in that regard. I won't tell you mine, and you don't have to tell me yours. So stays on the job all day means putting in a reasonable amount of time, that it's not just I think another point I would like to make here is that procrastination is a killer. So if we have not structured our workspace in such a way that or if we have not carved out a space in the house that is solely ours, where we can leave a project in midstream and come back to it without having to unpack, undo, open up, set up, do all those things, we are more likely to keep that thread of continuity and that keep that spark of enthusiasm going. And I think we've all been experienced this at different points in our lives where, maybe we were just stealing half of the dining room table, or we were working out of, a tote or something shoved under the bed. It's this whole thing, this whole document, according to me, should be aspirational. We do the best we can with what we have in our current situation. But in case you think that's a free get out of jail card, in case you think that's a get out of jail free card, let's not indulge in delusion or, let's not kid ourselves. If we're making up excuses, and that's okay. Nobody ever said that anyone has to do this. But let's be grown up enough to admit, to call us on our own BS. Plain and simple. If we're making excuses to ourselves and others that don't ring true, let's just skip that part. It is what it is. We don't owe anyone an explanation for what we did or didn't do in any given day. We are in charge of our own day, our own time, our own destiny. So if playing hooky or sleeping in or binge watching a miniseries on Netflix was the order of the day today, so what? Not going to kill us. But if we do that year in and year out, then chances are this isn't as high up on our list of priorities as maybe we think it is. Is committed over the long haul. So again, we know that, excuse me, we know that Malcolm Gladwell, in one of his books, I guess it was The Tipping Point, said that to become proficient or expert at anything, a person needs to put in about 10,000 hours of apprenticeship. That's 10,000 hours of apprenticeship. So if anyone thinks that they're going to walk into their art space, whip out a pan of watercolors and a brand new watercolor paper pad, and by the end of the week become an expert, well, dream on. Likewise with virtually, excuse me, likewise with virtually any other example that we may choose, whether it's stitching or whatever. Now, the level of, excuse me, the level of perfection or precision or proficiency that we each aspire to is obviously a factor here. If we want to stitch around the page in a grungy journal, no one, including us, should care if the stitches are the same length, if they're the same distance from the edge of the page, or if, the knot is on the right side as opposed to the back side of the paper. That's one extreme. That's one end of the spectrum. However, if you were beading something because you wanted a handmade element for your daughter's wedding gown or part of her bouquet or whatever, I'm just kind of going to the other end of the extreme of the pendulum, then chances are we're not going to use red thread with white pearls. We're going to have we're going to give it the job, the care and attention, and the skill that it requires. So all this bullet is saying is we don't expect overnight miracles, and we also don't throw in the towel when we don't have success at the end of the first day or the first week or the first year. We understand that growth and evolution and proficiency and expertise comes with time and practice. We're not quitters. We, like when little kids are registering for every little extracurricular activity, because they don't have the life experience. Well, number one, their parents are probably pushing them, but they also don't have the life experience to know what they're good at and what they might like. So a kid is in gymnastics and t-ball and soccer and hockey and, basket weaving and science lab and whatever the heck else is available. But gradually, as they mature and as time passes, they understand, well, I don't like the smells in a chem lab. I don't want to do this anymore. Or they have 2 left feet and they still can't stop when they're skating. So you start dropping some of those things because there's no human alive who is good at everything or even has all the time in the world to do all the things that any of us want to do over the course of a lifetime. So I believe that if we give whatever it is, in this case, bookmaking, crafting, a good old college try and decide, well, I surely don't like that, big deal. The next word out of your mouth should be, or out of our mouths should be, next. We're free to move on to something else that does bring us joy, that we can succeed at. Because we'd be fools, even at this late stage of life, to keep subjecting ourselves to failure because we're trying to be something we don't have the patience, skills, mindset to get behind and do. So what I'm saying is, you don't give up after the first day. You figure it out long enough. You give it a good enough try to figure out, number one, if you even like it, and number two, are you improving? Because if you're not improving, it would be a waste of time to continue. Has stakes that are high and real. Well, okay, I'm not sure what he meant there, but I would think that in that case, we could think about something like somebody who's hoping to transition from their full-time job. Maybe they want to talk to the boss and get their hours cut back to part-time, and they want to designate that additional free time to dipping their toe in the world of making money from their art. Those stakes are high, and those are real. If you can't replace that lost income and you can't survive on less income, that's real. There's something at stake there. I think that it could also be an attitudinal thing, in that sometimes, and I don't want to get off on too big a tangent here, but I have in the past talked about those of us that are I can't think of a word that isn't derogatory. I'll use the word dabblers, which has a derogatory, derogatory connotation. So there are some people who get their first job at the age of 18, and they stay there for decades until they get their gold watch and their pension. Then there are others of us, and I count myself among them. I know Sandy counts herself in this group as well, that would absolutely die if we had to spend that kind of time in that kind of a structure. Many of us have held jobs, but they're certainly not long-term. And the minute we get bored or feel like we've gotten what we wanted out of the experience, we're looking for something else, because we are curious and we want to do it all, be it all, have it all, that kind of thing. So it just seems to me that we have to, the sooner we can spend some alone time with ourselves and figure out some of these things about our own personality, and screw anybody who's trying to fit us into a pigeonhole. And the reason I told the thing about I remember telling an employer once that I have a checkered past. And of course, that was a way of me getting a laugh. As it turned out, he had no sense of humor. But anyway, because I think people like that, creative sorts, that don't fit into those boxes, quite often are criticized by spouses, children, relatives, strangers, people we care about, people we don't care about, who think, well, what the hell is the matter with her? Can't she hold a job, kind of thing? So maybe some of those stakes are just sort of thumbing our nose at the world and saying, you can't fence me in, baby. I know who I am. I know what I want. And it isn't what you want. It isn't what you think I should want. I don't know. Maybe that's rebellious. Accepts remuneration for her labor. And I made it feminine. So we know that money is a necessary evil. The world, commerce, it's the normal, it's the stuff of transactional behavior. Now, we can create and never make a dollar off our art. But I think at some point, most people reach the point of reckoning where they realize, number one, it would be nice to recoup some costs, like forget about getting anything for my time, because it is pure joy to do it, and, blah, blah, blah. So it is nice to recoup some money. But money is also a very clear and understandable way of keeping score. And again, maybe in your circumstances or maybe in my circumstances, we don't care about keeping score. We are doing what we're doing because we want to, and because maybe we've been held back or stymied by circumstances or spouses or conditions. But if somebody is willing to pay you for what you do, for heaven's sakes, accept the money. It is a form of, it is a pat on the back. It establishes, I was going to say it establishes your worth, but our worth. It establishes our worth in one way, but it should not be the only way that we measure or not, measure whether we're happy or not. So, again, if you're independently wealthy and you don't need anyone to ever pay you for what you do, then ignore that one. Okay, how many more? I should be speeding up. Does not over-identify with her job. I guess maybe that one boils down to hubris and ego and labeling. And the analogy, and you can see that in most cases when I'm trying to communicate some of these vague concepts, I do try to find analogies to help make it more, oh, that's what she means. So, not that being sick is an occupation, or at least it isn't for most people. We know that if somebody identifies themselves as diabetic, oh, I'm a diabetic. Oh, I'm an epileptic. Oh, I'm a cancer patient. That sometimes that very act of labeling oneself does not promote healing or health. Oh, I'm a doctor. Oh, I'm a lawyer. Oh, I'm a mother. Apologetically, I'm a mother. Every job, I would venture to say, has some stereotypes attached to it. And every so often, somebody does a ranking. Okay, so this year, do politicians rate above or below used car salesmen? So we all tend to make judgments about certain things. I have never subscribed to that theory because I would rather figure out who you are based on who you are and how you act than what letters might be after your name on your business card, or the fact that you don't even have a business card. So I have met some highly educated people who are absolute asses, and I have met some people who never finished school who are gems. So we know that there is certainly in some worlds, in some aspects of the art world, there's a fair bit of snobbery. I'm an artiste. I'm, big deal. Big deal. I've got publishing credits to my name. I was featured in such and such a publication. I had a solo show. Again, big deal. That's wonderful. And many of us would aspire to that, but it doesn't mean anything in the big picture. It's not going to be an automatic in to heaven. It's not going to, that and $4 will buy you coffee. Big deal. So I think this means stay real, stay humble, forget the pretense, just do your thing. Masters the technique of her job. Okay, so that probably circles back to the earlier point I was making that Malcolm Gladwell made about the 10,000 hours of apprenticeship. I think, I don't know that I've ever encountered a person like that myself, but I bet you there are some piano teachers out there, other music teachers, who have encountered students who could practice from now until the cows come home, and they will never get it. I think that would be like if I ever tried to have singing lessons. Like let's give everyone a break here, call it a day, and move on. So as long as there's growth and improvement and some insight happening and so on, I think a person is moving in the right direction. If you find that you are stalled, then maybe it's time to move on to something else. And I don't mean abandon the craft world altogether. I just mean, like maybe you switch to acrylics from watercolor, or maybe you give away all your brushes and paints and you stick with glue and scissors. Like has a sense of humor about her job. Well, I think many of you come to my channel because you think that I'm funny. And I always, if I can laugh, I would rather laugh than cry. So I think that a sense of humor is kind of a lubricant that helps us get through the day, the week, get through a life. Because if we can find a way to laugh, especially at ourselves, like we don't want to be laughing at anyone else's expense, but if we can find a way to laugh at our own foibles and quirks and eccentricities and screw ups, then we're not we can't do that and beat ourselves up at the same time. Usually. I've done my share of self-bashing as well. But I think it just means, again, it reinforces some of the earlier points. Humility. We don't think we're God's gift to the art world. We just happen to be enjoying what we do, and we have some skill. We're not God's gift to the human race. We're just a simple soul trying to get through this life, pleasing ourselves, not hurting others, contributing where we can, teaching where we can, supporting someone else where we can. And that all comes with recognizing our place. And I know I've said this before, but I will repeat it. I have this long thing somewhere, where people kind of get full of themselves and quite feeling self-important. And, how in the world would the workplace or the family or the art world get on without me? And the advice there was, stick your hand in a pail of water. And when you pull your hand out, the hole that you leave behind is the hole that you would leave behind. So, hey, our time here is finite. When we're gone, the world will keep on turning quite nicely without us. We hope that we're remembered fondly. We hope that we're missed. We hope that we made good use of the time and the life that we had, and that we helped rather than hurt others. But hey, it's gonna keep on spinning, baby. So let's just, maybe remember that when we start feeling a little too big for our britches. And then the last one, receives praise or blame in the real world. And so that's obviously a two-headed thing there. So receiving praise means that if someone gives you a compliment, and, obviously we hope it's sincere, it's not somebody blowing smoke or trying to ingratiate themselves. But if somebody says, oh, that's a nice dress, or, oh, I love that journal, then the only sensible, the only sane the only mature response is, oh, gee, thanks. Not, well, it's my first journal and I did this, and this wrong. It's a dress, I got it. Oh, I finally fit into it, or I got it at a thrift store. No, we just say, oh, thanks. Glad you like it. The other part, the blame part, is, and if you've watched any of my videos, you know, if I screw up, if I make a mistake, if I do something and then realize, oh, it would have worked so much better if I'd have done this before I did this, I always say it because I never want to create the illusion that I've got all the answers, that I'm right, that you're wrong, that I know everything and I'm a smarty pants, and BS. I call BS on that. If you have done something wrong, if I have done something wrong, I will acknowledge it. I will try to mitigate any damage if it's, if I've hurt somebody. I will apologize. I think there are people out there who feel that if they ever apologize to somebody, whether it's a child, a spouse, a colleague, whoever, that their tongues would fall out of their heads. Well, trust me, it doesn't happen. So this probably went on much longer than I intended, but I believe passionately about what I said. I think this is a genius document. It's, I'll leave it up here for a second or two more in case you want a screenshot. And I hope that it maybe helps in some small way to get all of us looking at this, looking at our lives, looking at what we're doing from a new perspective. And January 1st is absolutely one of the best days to start out with a new outlook. I will point out that January 2nd is good, March 5th is good, December 20th is good. In other words, every day is a good day to start over and to begin moving along to a point of self-actualization. And I think in the past I've talked about this as well. Was it Abraham Maslow that came up with a hierarchy of needs? So basically, a triangle, and if I remember, this is from college, I think there were 7 layers. At the very bottom is food and water, the very essentials of survival. You can't hope to be anywhere else on that pyramid if you are hungry or dying of thirst. Not going to happen. After we deal with that, somewhere along the way there is security. So we're not living in a war-torn country. We're not worried about being beaten up by a spouse or a thug in the street. We feel secure in our own bodies and in our own safety, and so on and so on and so on. There is a natural progression to how you move up that ladder. At the pinnacle of that triangle is self-actualization. That is that, and that even that is not stagnant. That is a point that we all aim for, where we are living, and this is going to sound like cliche, and oh my God, does she have a tape series to sell us? Where we're living our best lives, where we've kind of figured it out. We have it together. We've looked after those basic needs, and now we're working on ourselves. We've been hopefully working on ourselves all the way up, but we are working on ourselves. We're getting wise. We have insight. We have compassion. We care about others. We're not self-centered. We're not we see the bigger picture, and we continue to grow till the day we die. So that's self-actualization. So I think that that is a worthy goal for each of us. And again, it is a tough time out there. So, maybe some of us are being stuck on certain plateaus because job insecurity, food insecurity, is the rent going up for the umpteenth time? Those kinds of things. Those will affect our ability to concentrate on these extras in life. However, if we can carve out some time to look after that side, this side of our personalities and our beings, we will be better able to cope with the stuff that is not good, that is not right. And if we can laugh while we do it, so much the better. And with that, and 41 minutes in, let me just wish for you a year of insight and wisdom and expertise and all your basic needs covered, and time. Time, that's a big one, man. The will, the desire, and the perseverance to carve out the time that we each need to look after the kinder, gentler, more creative side of each of us. That's what I want for me, and that's what I want for you. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.